There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
Hello and welcome to the Twilight Highlight Zone. I'm your host for this episode. My name is Ben Hanson, and I'm joined by Jeff Cork.
Jeff Cork with a chest cold. How's it going?
Sound awesome.
I sound very masculine for a change,
doubt.
Finally.
This week, we are taking a look at 5 episodes from the classic series of Twilight Zone.
Mm-hmm.
We're nearing the middle of season 2.
Yeah.
These seasons are super long.
This particular block felt like it would never end.
Really? All right,
Yeah.
well, we're going to go in and analyze and discuss each one of these episodes. Some definitely better than others. All right, so the first episode is called Night of the Meek. And the basic premise is that it is a drunkard who dresses up every year to play Santa Claus at the local mall. He gets fired, happens to stumble across Santa's real bag that gives out magical presents, whatever anybody asks for, and then he becomes the actual Santa Claus and flies away.
Yeah. This is just the schmaltziest garbage.
Night of the Week episode, huh, Cork?
And the funny thing, this is an episode that I remember seeing when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I remember being really moved by it. And I thought it was really powerful stuff.
It made you love Christmas for
And
once.
it made me love Christmas even more, but holy cow, it is awful. It's terrible.
Not great. The best part, I think, is the soundtrack, because they kind of have cool Twilighty, zony versions of Christmas tunes.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that,
It is not great.
in the beginning, like, kids think that he's the real Santa Claus, of course, and they're crying and running up to him, and then he starts crying.
Oh, yeah, because the kids are all, their dads don't have jobs. He's living in the ghetto, all this kind of stuff. He gets like this, it's Art Carney as Santa, and he's giving this like super lame, teary speech after he gets fired for being drunk in front of all these kids. And he's like, you know, this is what I want for Christmas. You know, kids going hungry every night. And it's like, you know, you really can't take the high road here,
Yeah.
Santa. You showed up drunk.
Another highlight of the episode is when kids are going up and sitting on his lap, and there's a kid that goes up there, and he's like, "Hello, son, what's your name?" And he goes, Percival Smithers.
He wants a new front name.
New first name for Christmas.
He calls it a front name.
Does he really?
Yeah, he wants a new front name.
Oh, man, I missed
It's
that.
the best.
Percival Smithers is a pretty solid name.
Yeah, and his mom is not pleased with that. And another like weird moment for me is like at the very beginning when he's at the bar,
Yeah.
and the bartender is like using fake snow on the mirror to spell out Merry Christmas. And either he's got weird handwriting or he's spelling it with just like one R in cursive, and there's like no mention of that whatsoever. The kids press their faces against the glass.
Yeah.
And their noses did the whole Eye of Beholder thing, and it made me think of that. And I thought I'd bring that up there because it's has nothing to do with anything really. But
No, I like it because when we thread all the Twilight Zones together at the end of this entire
exactly.
run, that's how the kids are formed, or that's how the people on the planet of Night of the
Yep.
Eye of the Beholder, it's all intertwined.
it's all in
man.
the Zoneverse. Yeah.
I also like the fake snow that's falling down and getting caught in Santa's beard. It just looks like wads of paper. It's like somebody crumpled up like
Yeah.
a college ruled paper
Yep.
and shoved it in his beard.
When he first gets the bag, he goes to this like homeless center where some nun is singing like rousing. I don't know what's the old Come All Ye Faithful or something.
Sure.
But and he starts asking these old guys what they want. And one guy says he wants a sweater, and he's like, "What size?" And he says, "I don't care." And then
Just get this episode over with.
Yeah, and then like the kids, when he asks what they want, kids are very vague. They're just like, "I want a toy."
Yeah.
It's like, all right, there's a toy.
And there's also that through line of the store manager and the cop that eventually brings them in. Like, they're the biggest doubters. Then they end up getting like a fine old liquor that they ask for, and they start to believe in the spirit of Christmas.
As they get progressively more intoxicated.
And also they end up going home with each other, like arm over each other, like, let's go back and drink
Yeah, we'll go back and finish this bottle.
and
yeah.
talk about what we saw tonight.
Yeah, because Santa, when the bag finally, because what they do is they go and he's like, this must be stolen merchandise when he's at the shelter.
Right.
So then they take the bag, and the manager is just like, "Ha! I knew it." And he's like taking stuff out of the bag, and it's just like tin cans and garbage and stuff like that.
Right.
Eventually, though, he gives out all the presents, and the bag is empty, and his drunk friend is just like, you didn't get anything yourself. And he's just like, oh, this was great. Goes into the alley. There's a sleigh with what I thought was a little person at first, but it's just a little kid
jumping out from behind a can.
Terrifying.
Like this weird leap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, then I thought they were like taxidermied reindeer, but they were actually, I was like, oh, they're going to like totally cheap out on this, but they're a real reindeer, and that was nice. And then Rod Serling at the end does like a Merry Christmas, and I'm sure right then he was just like, I'm so glad I'm Jewish because this is garbage.
I didn't understand what happened to the real Santa. Did he crash his sleigh and he was like dying in an alley back there?
It's like a Highlander situation, I think. I don't know.
Also, this episode stands out as being the only one I think so far that has an inner title. Like when it cuts to commercial in the middle, it has like a Christmas theme, like you are watching the Twilight Zone.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of little thing. And I guess there's just so customized, they decided to leave it in there for the Netflix transfer. Or
yeah, that's
transfer
interesting.
We're seeing here.
Speaking of transfer, yeah, this is another one of the episodes that was shot on video.
Yeah.
And it's just miserable. It was like one more strike against this thing. It was like, of all the things it has going against it, just the fact that it is visually unappealing, that did not help.
No. So, as down as you are on this episode, it wasn't that offensive to me, and I ended up giving it a 5.
I gave it a upside down 5 on a calculator.
Okay.
Good old number 2.
Good old boobless.
Yeah.
All right, Cork.
All right, we move on to Dust. This one, we start off in this desolate-looking western town. There's a man, he's sentenced to be hung. This gross guy comes into town. He's kind of being smug, and he's really excited that the hanging is going to happen. Apparently, the condemned man ran over a child with his wagon in a drunken spree. He sold the town the rope, and lo and behold, the father comes and begs for forgiveness, and the guy says, oh, I'll sell you some magic dust that will give, if you sprinkle on people's heads, it will let them forgive you, and love will fill their heads. So then everyone gathers, they're about to hang him, and the old man, the dad, sprinkles the dust everywhere, and they go to hang him, and the rope breaks. And then the father of the girl who died says, there won't be a hanging tonight. And the end. But it was a new rope.
It was a new rope.
It was a new 5-strand hemp rope.
I don't know if there's been a more abrupt transition between episodes in Twilight Zone history between the Christmas episode to this, which we should explain. It is a sad, slow, kind of somber episode throughout the entire thing. And I really, really like this one. Like just when I saw the title, Dust, I was like, oh, I hope this is a bold episode.
That guy, that peddler, is one of the grossest people because it's one of those westerns where everyone just looks like the hair on their forehead is just plastered down with sweat.
Yeah,
and he has a missing front tooth. This guy, he's kind of a rotund guy. He needs a shave, and it's not like they blacked out his tooth. This actor was missing a tooth, and he's just slimy and disgusting. And it's one of those movies episodes too where you can tell that everyone wanted to push a cold compress on their face, and that would feel really good, or slobber a bunch of water out of a canteen. It's another one of those.
Everyone was miserable.
Yeah.
Do you think they felt pressure to do Western episodes just because Westerns were so popular back then?
I think the sets were paid for is probably, and I would imagine that honestly, I think they had access to the sets.
Yeah.
CBS did, and then I would imagine that Westerns were quite popular too.
Yeah.
And it's an easy kind of a departure from a typical modern setting. They could just be like, oh yeah, this is just a morality play. We'll just toss it around here.
Yeah.
So anyway, the guy though, when he's the peddler, he's a slimy guy, and he does not make any attempt to hide it.
And he's super gossipy too. He just goes through and wants to talk to everybody. He reminds me of the women in the suburbs and Edward Scissorhands. Just ugh, it's just disgusting.
Yeah, and he's got the dust. He comes up with the idea. He pours out the tobacco and just fills it with dirt.
Laughing constantly.
He sells the dust to the dad, and he's cackling as he's selling it. It's it's making there's no effort to disguise what's happening here.
Yeah.
And the guy comes back with 100 pesos, and he's like, where did you get this money from? And he's like, oh, my borrowed money. People have sold things.
All of his friends sold everything they had so that he could maybe buy this magic dust to potentially free his son, who regretted killing this lady. And the father has this crazy speech where he's like, haven't you ever seen hope at the bottom of a bottle? Just a super sad, super sincere speech. And at first the dad is so struck he can't even talk. Like he gets his granddaughter in theory or some little girl to try and like speak for him to try and get this guy to not be hanged.
Right. Because they're speaking to the parents of the little girl at that point.
Right.
And then when the rope breaks, everyone kind of leaves the site of the hanging. There's just like little beggars there.
Yeah.
And this part kind of left me felt weird about it. The peddler like throws the money that he got from the dust to these kids.
Yeah.
And he's like, "This is it, take it." He's like, "This is the money that these the people were like loaning and selling all their personal
great
property."
To have the son alive, but they could use that money back.
Give the money back. Jeez, you're just gonna give it to these like snotty-nosed kids who were there to watch a guy die?
Yeah.
Come on.
So this episode, it was so dark. And then there's a scene where the father's like sprinkling the magic dust around the hanging
it was
site,
so pathetic.
and he's just screaming, "Magic is for love! Magic is for love!" Just over and over again. It really stood out in this entire movie. That like the rest of it just felt like a Bergman film or something.
Yeah.
Just bizarre.
Everyone is laughing at the old guy too.
Yeah.
It was hard to watch.
Was there a part of you that was hoping that the guy would die, that the rope wouldn't break?
Yeah.
Is there a part of you, like when you're watching something dark, that just wishes it would go darker? Like with Breaking Bad, where you're wishing, like, I hope a lot of these people die.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
wrong?
sometimes. No, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think that you kind of feel like a little more is at stake.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah, I think it would have been a more interesting episode if, after all that, they still couldn't save him.
Yeah.
But
But what's the moral there in the Twilight Zone?
or is this case
Don't
the
run
moral?
over someone in a cart.
Exactly. Do you think that happened? Like they're going for like the drunk driving analogy, but was that a thing?
Drunk driving?
Drunk driving back in the 1800s.
Oh, well, a wagon tearing through town?
Were there a lot of drunk horses and people steering it that just took out kids?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'll do some research. I'll get back to you.
Please look into it.
Yeah.
But so the moral this time around, Serling says, in any search for magic, first check the human heart. Yeah, it's a good one. Oh, and then the sheriff is the ultimate bummer. I should mention, because like the guy after the rope breaks, he's like, "I'm free," and then the sheriff just goes, "Are any of us truly free?" All right, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
They should cut to him at the saloon in a neighboring town, and I said, "Are any of us truly free?"
Yeah, I like this episode a lot. I end up giving it an 8.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I like to do the play with the numbers a little bit. I give it half an 8, so I'm going to say a 3, like slicing it vertically.
A 3, really?
A 3.
Didn't you just enjoy how dark it was and how grim throughout the entire thing?
I love dark, grim things. I thought this one was just kind of boring.
Oh,
honestly, the peddler was like a ridiculous character, which I typically like in the Twilight Zone, but yeah, this one just didn't really do much for me.
Wow, I'm struck.
Yeah.
All right, I'm curious about this next one. This one's called Back There, and it opens with a bunch of rich gentlemen discussing time travel. One guy leaves, and it turns out that he traveled back in time as he was exiting the building. He eventually finds out that it is the day that Lincoln was assassinated, and he is in D.C., so he enlists the help of a certain mysterious individual, who turns out to be John Wilkes Booth, to try and stop the assassination of President Lincoln. Booth drugs him, and then Lincoln still gets shot, and then he eventually travels forward in time again and tries to talk to his gentleman friends about what happened, and they won't have it, and he learns the lesson that he has altered the life of one guy and turned him from a janitor into being a high-class citizen.
Yeah, like some things are locked in the timeline.
Right.
And other things are not.
Right. And so he could not stop Lincoln's death, but he saved this guy from being a janitor.
Yeah. The janitor, I think he was actually more of like a manservant, would we call him? He was the guy at the club who, if you bump into him, he'll spill a drink on you.
Right.
And pat it with a washcloth and be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. I'm so sorry."
Yeah.
He's that guy.
So I didn't know where this one was going, and I was really confused in the beginning just about the fact that they were discussing time travel and whether or not you could change things in the past.
Because they were doing it initially, though, with how you make money, right?
I think that might be at the end, isn't it?
Well, they do that at the end too.
Okay.
But I think that wasn't that like you manipulate the market somehow.
Okay. Yeah. That makes more sense. But it's just confusing that.
These guys would just be talking about time travel. It was a little out there.
Well, just the idea that they're talking about it and then without any reason, he suddenly goes back in time when he steps outside.
He touches his forehead. He gets a little wobbly.
Yeah, it does. It blurs out for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I like how Serling, in his intro, he's like, who's ever heard of time travel? Like, it makes it seem like it's this big thing. Like, get ready for this. Like, something we've done multiple times in the show already. But, oh boy, this time around...
He's in prison, right? Because people are just like, what is this nut job doing? He's kind of threatening the life of the president,
about it.
right?
Yeah.
But then this guy comes, John Willingham.
Something ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's the most theatrical entrance. He looks like a Sacha Baron Cohen character.
Oh, yeah. I'll take you out of jail. So they're like, okay, we'll take you. You can go with him.
Right.
And he's like, I'll reform him. And then doesn't he give him a handkerchief at one point to kind of like, I'm really into this washcloth handkerchief thing this episode.
It's true.
I think that's what I want. But that's the big reveal though.
Because he looks and it's embroidered with JWB. I love the idea that John Wilkes Booth, and he was a failed actor, right? And they play that up a little bit. He's so theatrical throughout this entire thing. Yeah. He has his initials on his stupid handkerchief.
Yeah, and he brings that in the present day.
Right.
Because he's the guy is so overwhelmed by the fact that the guy who spilled the drink on him is now a big shot at the club.
Right.
So he's like, oh, I'm getting the vapors. Only one cure for that. I do declare. It's with this handkerchief that inexplicably came with me through time, JWB.
So if you walked outside of this building right now.
Yes.
And the lamppost turned into a fire-lit lamppost.
Oh, gas lamp. Yeah.
Gas lamp, which is it was the cool transition for this episode.
It was a cool transition.
Would you try and stop the death of Lincoln, or would you think, you know what, everything turned out pretty well for America, I should just let this happen?
That would be tough, because I would have quite a train ride ahead of me, seeing as we're located in Minneapolis.
All right, so say you went back in time and it was 2 weeks before Lincoln died.
Oh, okay, so I have time to...
And you still had all your current day money and it somehow transferred back then. Would you make the trek to D.C. to try and stop this?
Yeah, why not? But I guess I see your point. Everything turned out pretty well, ultimately.
Yeah, and Johnson, I think, was the next president, and he was a piece of crap.
Yeah.
But so you're stopping him, but I mean, yeah, what's the upside other than just messing up history forever?
Yeah.
Who knows how many butlers and janitors will be sitting at your dinner table when you get home?
You know what I would do?
What's that?
I would buy a bunch of old-timey action figures and bury them because they'd be worth a mint.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. I'd leave them in the package, though. Oh, I wouldn't play with them.
Pop quiz, Cork. What was the name of the play?
Our American Cousin.
Our American
I was so
Cousin.
excited that they said that because at first I was like, okay, he's traveled back in time. What's going on?
Yeah.
I didn't know if this was like, did people in the 60s know the date of Lincoln's assassination? Were they that much better educated? So
I knew it because it's my birthday.
Oh, okay. There you go. Not all of us were born that day, though.
That's true.
So,
yeah.
I like how he pieced it together rather than like a newspaper that says, the president to watch a play. John Wilkes Booth is excited to perform on a rope.
Yeah, no, it was a nice touch. It's like, oh, say hello to the president for me, as some people are going off.
And he
did
the wah 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 president.
Here,
did you say president?
I also like when he travels back to the future and he's at the table. Like he brings up time travel. Like, hey, boy, this time travel concept. Turns out some things can be changed, and everyone is just super bored by this conversation. Like, what has changed in the timeline for them to be riveted by a time travel discussion in the beginning of the episode, and now they're just like, okay, buddy,
yawn.
Yeah, no, it's just entertaining. I like the dumb portrayal of John Wilkes Booth, and I'm always up for a good time travel story.
Yeah, absolutely. And one quick note, the reason that one guy did get that big promotion to Big Shot Dumb was because he was the constable who did believe the time traveler, so he scoured D.C. looking to save the day, and people remembered that.
Yeah, and his influence spread. That's right.
Yeah.
Probably should have mentioned
So
that.
It wasn't just like a random event.
I ended up giving this one a 7.
I gave it a 6.
Well, all right.
Yeah.
See, we're coming back into line after that last disaster.
Woof. Yeah.
Ooh, woof.
All right. So this episode that I'm going to do is called The Whole Truth. All right. This guy is a used car salesman and all that implies. And suddenly an old guy comes and says, hey, you want to buy my old car? And the guy's like, all right, I'll buy the car. And he's like, okay, but one last thing after he signs the paper. This car is haunted. He's like, what the? I don't believe in this. He's like, yep, if you have this car, you can only tell the truth. And as you might imagine, puts quite a dent in his job as a used car salesman. So after a series of catastrophes, he finally ends up selling that car to another person who ends up being Nikita Khrushchev.
Of course.
In the Cold War. So, yeah, there you go.
And that's how the Cold War ended, I think, in the lore of Twilight Zone.
So I think it all started when the writers were like, okay, what are we going to do with this haunted car cliche that we hear so much about?
So this episode started, and the salesman's name is Harvey Honeygut.
Real quick, name. Though, it starts with, there's a certain theme for lighthearted Twilight Zone episodes.
Musically?
Yeah. It's like, you can play the music and cue it up or whatever in post-production. But whenever that comes up, I get really excited because I know it's going to be just like stupid, lighthearted nonsense. And this delivered.
It turns out to be Liar Liar.
With politics. Really made you think.
Yeah, there's also... So he also tries to sell the car to a politician like halfway through the episode. Yeah. And that's pretty wacky because the politician loves his pitch in the beginning. Yeah. He has a line where he says like, wow, you sharpshooting Sharpie. Yeah. Like he loves this guy's approach of just being brutally honest about this piece of crap car. And the politician wants to seem like an everyman, I guess, is the pitch. Yeah. But then he's like, what? This car will make me tell the truth. I'm a politician. You know how we work.
He immediately buys the story. Because, why else would, whatever, haunted car. But remember, like, he's in the middle of the pitch, though. Like, pitching a young couple on another sale. Yeah. And in the middle, he sneaks off to conduct this complicated transaction of acquiring another car. Right. And that couple is stuck around. And at that point, he's unable to, like, lie. He's like, oh, the engine's shot on it. Yeah, this is broken and whatever. Yeah. And then he has his assistant later on make some...
Woody Allen.
Yeah, no, actually, it's R.D. Johnson.
Oh, who's that?
From Laugh-In.
Not familiar.
You don't know Laugh-In?
I've heard of Laugh-In, but I would not... Did he host it or something?
No, he was just one of the... You look it up, you'll recognize him. He's the one who always do that. Very interesting.
Was Nixon on Laugh-In?
Yeah, Soccer to me. Yeah, okay. I date myself a little bit here. I've only seen it on Nick at Night. Okay, geez. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, his young assistant makes these new signs that are like not dependable, or basically things to that effect, and he puts them up all around the place. And then he asks for a raise. He's like, "Hey, you said 6 months ago that you know if I worked hard." He's like, "You're not going to get any of that money. That's not going to happen." That's what I tell all these people. Yeah. And his assistant or the salesman Irv ends up just going. I don't know what he says. He just gives him an uppercut, lays him out flat on the floor.
He punches the air pretty clearly in front of his face. This is one of the least convincing stunts in all of Twilight Zone.
Yeah. He didn't fall down a flight of stairs in real life. No, that's for sure.
No, definitely not. Yeah, it's like the fun part, and it comes through in Liar Liar a lot, where he's like trying to write like this pen is blue and he can't do it. Like I love the idea of like him struggling with himself with this, but it didn't really happen too much in this episode. Like every time he told the truth, this obnoxious music would play and he'd get really deadpan about it. Yeah. Well, here's the way this actually works. Yeah. It's like there weren't many fun scenes of him really trying to fight it too much.
No. And the whole Nikita Khrushchev thing.
What was your best guess for where that was going? Because like they already used their politician card. It's like who else? Like for a second, I'm like, maybe it's the president, but that's just kind of repeating.
I'm Hitler. I don't know.
I certainly didn't see Nikita Khrushchev coming to the United States and wanting to buy a crappy American car.
Yeah, because he wanted to like make the Americans look bad.
Right.
When you think he could have just done that anywhere. You just buy just the worst car.
It was the most confusing thing. And then at the very end, after he sells the truth-telling card to Nikita Khrushchev, he calls up the White House and asks for John Kennedy.
Jack Kennedy.
There we go. And actually, I looked this up, and I guess one of the weird details about this episode is that it aired on the actual inauguration day for JFK.
Interesting.
So they lined it up and planned it out ahead of time.
This gem of an episode.
It's really our tip of the cap to all of American politics. And so there was a confusing moment where the assistant salesman is talking about like how impossible it is to sell a car and all the stuff this guy's been saying. And he says that the salesman, while he's being haunted by this truth-telling ghost or whatever, he said that if the car was any older, Moses could have driven it across the Red Sea. Apparently that's what he told somebody in an effort to tell the truth. But isn't that joke or that exaggeration in itself a lie? Like,
yeah, because that's impossible.
You know what? I think that's impossible. I don't think Moses had a car.
No.
So it really blurred the line about what's a lie, what's not. It made you think on so many levels.
I want to know how this old guy acquired a haunted car.
I wonder if they do any sequel episodes in Twilight Zone or like prequel episodes. I
demand to know more about the lore of this haunted car.
Yeah, it could just keep going back forever. Did it start out as a haunted bicycle?
What part, like if you took that car apart piece by piece?
Yeah.
What part makes it haunted? Is it once it's all compiled into one automobile that drives, or is it like the fender, if you install that onto another car?
Yeah.
Is that car in turn haunted?
That's a good question.
Is there critical mass?
Clearly, what makes you unable to tell a lie is when you sign the lease for the car. She was very particular, like, hey, Nikita has to sign this thing. We don't want any assistant helping out here.
Yeah.
So it's when you finish signing your name, that's what transfers a ghost into your soul. I think for official ghost lore. It really makes
this is a really baffling episode. I don't know what they were going for.
Yeah, I ended up giving it a 6.
Yeah, that's what I give it too.
Okay.
I don't know why I liked this one more than Dust, but
you're crazy.
At least this one was like weird.
It was weird and so wildly unpredictable. I had to go along with it.
Yeah.
Next episode is a little one called The Invaders. Serling introduces it as a house untouched by progress, and there is a lone, mute woman living in this home that looks like it's from the 1800s. She hears a UFO land, goes to investigate. 2 tiny aliens in suits get out and attack her in her home. The rest of this episode is this silent struggle with this mute lady against these tiny aliens. She eventually defeats them, and then you hear a radio broadcast coming from the UFO saying, "Don't come, cancel the invasion, central control. She was too powerful for us. We've encountered this race of giants." And then it zooms in on the logo, and it's the U.S. Air Force UFO. So it turns out that it was us landing on a planet filled with giants.
A giantess.
A giantess that is stuck in the 1800s.
Or something. I think the thing they were trying to show, like, no real culture or civilization that would make you think it was anything other than.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, which is pretty smart. It's the same reason she doesn't talk throughout the entire episode.
Exactly.
Apparently, it wouldn't make sense for an alien to speak English, even though they've done that a couple times in the past.
That's true.
Yeah.
We'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
So instead of talking, she just has these high-pitched moans and grunts that really sound unnatural. But then again, it's an alien, so you can't really judge.
Yeah, exactly.
Cork, as I was watching this, I was thinking the entire time, this must be Cork's favorite thing.
Because this is pretty close to it.
It is a giant fighting tiny guys that look ridiculous. So like they don't look like astronauts.
No.
They look like kind of Vogons from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie, just like super stocky, wide spacesuits that make the sound of wind-up toys.
Yeah.
And do they have the wind-up thing on their head?
I don't think they do. That they have some kind of little antenna though.
Yeah, that certainly looks like it.
That was another like really smart detail though, is they had to make it so that they looked alien.
Right.
But in retrospect, you're like, oh, they're humanoid. There's some kind of like weird pressure suit that would enable them to live. You know, because at that time, we weren't exactly soaring through the solar system.
You know what it looks like? It looks like in Rocket Man when Harlan Williams farts in his suit and it inflates. That's kind of what the aliens look like in this one. I'm sure that's what they're going for.
Yeah, it's probably exactly what they were going for.
This episode was awesome.
It was great. And I like how you have these things that they're not threatening on any physical level, really, but at the same time they are, because they have that weird little beam thing.
Like the Buzz Lightyear laser beam.
Yeah, it looks like that. It's like a little LED.
Yeah.
And or it's probably a little tiny incandescent light at the time.
Right.
But it makes like a little crackling, popping sound, and she recoils in pain. And at first you're like, what is that all about? And then later on you see she's getting like blisters and like...
It's like giving her warts or something.
Yeah,
like,
some kind of radiation.
Yeah, and I didn't know if it was from that weapon or if it's just like she was struck by disease from these invaders right away. But yeah, it seems like that weapon was taking her out. And then
And then
they eventually get a knife, and it looks like the craziest thing when these tiny toy aliens are holding this gigantic knife and slashing at her feet.
Yep, there's a moment where she is by the door, and there's like a little hole in the door that one of them is blown through, like blown a hole in the door. It looks like a little mouse trap, like a mouse hole in a cartoon. And she's standing there on the other side of it, and there's like a spotlight from the thing, like looking in, and she's hovering above it with like a hatchet, just waiting and waiting and waiting. There's nothing comes of that. Because it runs away and they make little scampering footprint sounds.
Yeah.
It's great. There's another moment when she finally gets one and kills it though, because it's like on the bed.
So I'm confused about what he was doing. It was like a comedic moment where it was like trapped under the sheets. And it was just kind of like wandering around under the sheets.
Yeah.
And then she wraps it up in that.
And she just beats that thing to death against the table.
And
it was like
burns it in the fire.
And then burns it in the fire.
She locks it in a box and puts it in the fire.
Yeah, best, presumably her best box. But and then like she gets cut by the hand in her hand.
But what's weird is you never see blood, and I didn't know if that's because they couldn't show blood in the 60s on TV, or if they wanted to kind of hint that she wasn't human.
I think she gets some on her hand. I think it's very subtle, but I think that when it cuts her hand, you can see it a little bit.
I love this episode. I love any show like this, and like Jurassic Park does it really well with like the raptors. Where you're just constantly trying to keep track of where they are.
Yeah.
So it's like it makes it very clear there's only 2 invaders in this house, and she's dealing with one, and there's constantly hints of where the other ones are. Because of like footsteps that you can hear in the distance. Yeah,
like she's got like the loft area, which is where the ship landed.
Right.
And then the others are just there. I knew this was coming, and I watched this with my 6-year-old.
Oh, wow.
Because I try to watch Eye of the Beholder with him, and I was really excited about his reaction to this one, just to kind of like, I like the idea of like a kid learning about your expectations, kind of getting, upended to a certain degree.
It's a good lesson for life, you're saying?
Yeah, Daddy doesn't always come home. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, and he really liked it. It was kind of spooky for him, which is kind of silly. But
did he laugh at because whenever you see these toys, they're doing very clearly like a wind-up toy kind of wobbly walk.
They are absurd. If you look at them, you'll probably laugh.
Did he laugh?
No, he was pretty spooked out just because the music I think is really effective. And another thing that is brilliant is the lighting design on it, because whenever she moves around, she has like a candlelight or something like that.
Yeah,
and it's a very simple trick. Like things are being like they're just dimming lights and turning lights up and everything, but it does make it look as though there's like a natural light source where there are constantly shadows and places for these little guys to hide.
Yeah, they really blow it when she like walks into a place with a fireplace though, and she has her tiny candle, and then the candle goes out and the room goes super dark, but it's like there's a fireplace right there. It's roaring. Like,
well, there's a box on top of it.
Oh, that's right, with the dumb alien inside of it. So did your kid understand the twist at the end?
Yeah, we talked about it a bunch afterward too, but yeah.
What didn't he understand?
I think at first he probably didn't understand the twist completely. Yeah.
You had to explain what the Air Force was?
I had to explain why there was a giant lady attacking the people.
And then it made complete sense.
After I basically broke down the entire concept, yeah.
But you knew the twist ahead of time, right?
Yes.
Just because
this is a really iconic episode.
Yeah, for sure. And like I watched it back in high school, and I didn't remember it right away. It wasn't until she first encounters them, we're like, wait a minute, I think she's a giant. That's right.
Yeah. This is another, like, it's referenced in the Twilight Zone pinball machine as well.
Oh.
When your game ends, you have like a typical like match screen where it has like the last 2 digits from your score, and it'll match like a randomly generated number, and one of those little aliens pops up and he shoots all the other numbers, leaving the last one, and he spins his little light thing.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
One of the highlights of this episode, and also one of the worst things, was the sound design. It was all over the place because like the footsteps were so cool.
Yeah.
You can just hear them running around in the attic or any place else. Then every time you see them, it has like the sound of a wind-up toy.
It is really a wind-up toy sound.
And it's the worst. Like, if you're going to make them look like a wind-up toy, at least try and use the sound design to make it seem different in some way. But it's not.
Yeah.
And then also they have the super cheesy UFO sound. Where did that come from? Is that just
I don't know,
from the 50s? Or do you think somebody reported it once?
I think someone invented the theremin, and they were just like, here you go, done. This is what a UFO sounds like.
I'm going to make a fortune off these theremins. Come on, sci-fi, boom.
Exactly.
The other highlight of this episode for me was when she fell back on the bed, and then the alien landed on her chest. Clearly somebody was just off camera, like, throwing the dumb toy at her, and she had to react like apparently it had leapt from across the room, or it has a jetpack. I don't know what they're going for.
She had to, like, Agnes Moorehead, the actress, she had to feel like the biggest fool.
Oh, man.
During that entire thing, but she did a phenomenal job.
It's amazing that it turned out as well as it did, because it could have been the dumbest thing. I'm sure the entire time she was shooting that, she's like, oh, God, this is the end of my career.
Yeah, as soon as some guy came out with those things at the end of his arm, here you go. I'll be working with you today, Miss Moorehead.
I ended up giving this one a 9.
Yeah, same here.
All right. Well, I think this is definitely one of the highlights so far.
Yeah, it was a rough block of 5, though, I think, in general.
Man, Dust was cool.
I don't know. I disagree.
I think it was the super depressed father that sold me. Like, if that guy hadn't have done such an amazing job with his performance, I probably would have been in your camp, too. But all right, well, thanks for joining us for this block of 5 episodes from Twilight Zone. Tune in next week on Monday. We're going to post it, and we will cover the next 5.
By highlights, Twilight Zone.
Sarlacc.